a topic that will, again, start with the University of Alabama, this time with Nick Saban and Tony Mitchell, the five-star freshman, suspended after he was arrested, half a pound of weed in the car with him and a passenger. The passenger in the car had a concealed firearm, and they reached upwards of 140 miles per hour as they evaded police, initially trying to pull the vehicle over for driving 78 in a 55. And, well, Nick Saban responded with this.
Tony Mitchell has been suspended from the team and all team activities until we gather more information about the situation and what his legal circumstance is. And, guys, everybody's got an opportunity to make choices and decisions. There's no such thing in being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You got to be responsible for who you're with, who you're around, and what you do, who you associate yourself with, and the situations that you put yourself in. So it is what it is, but there is, cause and effect when you make, choices and decisions that put you in bad situations. So
there's Nick Saban, who runs the athletic department at the University of Alabama, saying there is no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. And in this case, there is no defense for evading police, driving 141 miles per hour in Holmes County, Florida, having $7,000 cash, charged with possession, distribution, and, of course, evading police in this as they were trying to pull him over for speeding. Chad, how can you not listen to Nick Saban and think of the way Nate Oats handled the Brandon Miller situation, where Brandon Miller returned to the strip in Tuscaloosa to deliver the gun to Darius Miles at his request, that ended up being used in the murder of Jamea Harris. That is the exact opposite response that we heard from Saban here, and Saban knows what he's saying with that. Wrong place, wrong time is the initial reaction that Nate Oats had to apologize for in his defense for Brandon Miller, who was literally just named Freshman of the Year for the country in college basketball.
There was no coincidence here in the choice of words that Nick Saban used. Look, Nick Saban, the only time I can remember in his career that he ever had to apologize for anything he said was when he was on the rubber chicken circuit and spoke out against Jimbo Fisher paying guys to go there. And then that blew up, and he later said, I misspoke, poor choice of words, called to apologize to Jimbo Fisher. Outside of that, Nick Saban doesn't apologize for anything. And he chooses his words carefully. So when Nick Saban drops a line in the middle of this whole thing and says there's no such thing as wrong time, wrong place, wrong time, whatever, that's not a mistake. He is responding directly to Nate Oats. I don't care what anyone else says about this. Nick Saban is no dummy. He saw Nate Oats' terrible press conference initially about this, one, by the way, that Nate Oats had to apologize for after the fact because it blew up in his face. Nick Saban has read, he's heard, he's seen what has been said about Alabama's athletic department, which, as Hutton said, he runs. He is basically the AD. Not basically, he is the athletic director at Alabama. Everything will be deferred to Nick Saban on all decisions. So when Nick Saban sees his university and his athletic department challenged because of something dumb that the basketball coach did, and the basketball coach said, guess what Nick Saban does? He comes out and he gives the blanket statement about his program. And in his program, there's no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. If you tell me that's a coincidence, I'm not buying it. Nick Saban's not dumb. He uses words and chooses them carefully. He knew exactly what he was doing when he said that line.
Yes. He also said you're responsible for your actions. That was not the case, Chad, as we watched Neyland Stadium after Alabama was trying to get off the field as the Tennessee fans stormed the field. Saban did not have his team responsible for their actions that night.
Yeah, his idea of wrong place, wrong time was the young woman who got slapped upside the head.
Yeah.
She was in the wrong place, the wrong time because she was illegally on the field after storming the field. That's what Nick Saban would say about that.
But in this case,
he does talk out of both sides of his mouth. He does not have the best track record when it comes to player discipline. But I also think that he would have handled the Brandon Miller situation different. And I think that's what he's saying.
So in the basketball with Miller, they are pointing to no charges for Miller. And in the situation of Nate Oats, his initial response of wrong place, wrong time meant he was there at the scene when something went down. and that was it. That's what was the implication. In this case with Tony Mitchell, he's driving 141 miles per hour. He's the guy behind the wheel. The passenger had the concealed firearm. They find half a pound of weed, $7,000 cash, and the intent to sell and distribute. That was in the police report. But the idea that Nick Saban is saying you're responsible for your actions and poor choices, that was the entire storyline with Brandon Miller, where Chad and I sat here and said, you don't have to kick him off the team. Discipline action need to be taken, though, based on what happened that night or the early morning hours of January 15th in Tuscaloosa. And nothing happened, even after they found out new information about the text regarding return to the scene from Darius Miles, who is one of two charged with capital murder in this case down in Alabama. Point being, the suspension here of Tony Mitchell compared to the way the basketball program handled Brandon Miller, who's about to tip off in the Sweet 16, complete 180. And I think it speaks volumes that Saban is coming over the top saying these things specifically in response as Alabama is about to begin spring practice, or just has. They started yesterday. And Nate Oats in Alabama, they're in the Sweet 16. It's not just a coincidence.
It's not just coincidence. Also, two different things in terms of legal ramifications.
Right.
I mean, you've got one player who has been arrested on multiple charges.
That's what I said.
And so he said he's got to face all the legal ramifications.
But wrong place, wrong time, he doesn't believe in it. And he's also saying you're responsible for your poor choices. And so in this case of Tony Mitchell, he's saying that all of it was on the guy that was in the passenger seat. He's the guy that told him to pound it, meaning hit it, press the accelerator. Let's go. Get it up to 141. It's time to get out of here.
Now, let me also state that if Nick Saban does not suspend him for multiple games to start the next season, if he comes back and they work out a deal and, something happens where he's not going to jail or facing serious criminal charges, he says, oh, well, we disciplined him in the offseason. He's not missing any game time. I will crush Nick Saban because he's once again talking out of both sides of his mouth. I crushed him over the Jermaine Burton lack of any discipline that he had. So Nick Saban's no innocent choir boy here when it comes to giving passes to players that can help him. And I'm not claiming he is. But he is right in what he's saying about this player, and he's right to attack Nate Oats in what he's saying because what Nate Oats said was completely ludicrous, and he had to apologize for it. And I do believe that Nick Saban, like I believe 98% of coaches in America, would have suspended Brandon Miller for some set of time. I think different coaches would have handled it differently. There are plenty that would have kicked him off the team. There are a bunch that would have suspended him for 10 games. There are some that would go 5, 3, 2, whatever. They would have taken action. But I am here to tell you the vast majority of coaches, ones that I've talked to, have said, if that situation happened, you remove the kid from the program for the time until you get all the facts. He's going to miss at least a few games at minimum. And Nate Oats suspended Brandon Miller for 0 games, 0 time. Not one half of basketball did he miss. And that is where Alabama completely missed the boat in this story. And I think Nick Saban is making up for that in a little bit by saying his side of what he believes with stories like this.
And the side story that I'm reading into is 141 miles per hour. The Alabama connection makes me think of Henry Ruggs. He was driving 156 in Las Vegas. 2 separate incidents, of course. But in the case of the speeds that these guys, I think of Georgia with Jalen Carter that we were talking about late last month. Chandler LaCroix, a member of the staff at Georgia, was killed, and Devin Willock killed in that car crash. They were driving 104 miles per hour, and we know in the case of Carter, he was driving next to them in a car issued through name, image, likeness. The car that crashed that reached 104 miles per hour was a issued car through the university that LaCroix didn't have authority to be driving at that specific time. But the miles per hour here, the speeds, I can't ignore that. Guys are just taking off, and the wrecks are happening. Bad things are happening with the speed. And I would also say, should there be some type of regulation, and we discussed this too, of name, image, likeness, car deals, what it could be. Because in the case of Carter, he's in a Trackhawk that's all souped up too. But, I mean, they were also driving the university-issued car for the coaching staff.
Yeah, I don't know that it's an NIL issue. It's look, I mean,
Carter had this car out of
solution
Ohio.
to this?
I don't know. Yeah, again.
So they would say, okay, well, the kid would normally be, in a 1991 Grand Am, and it doesn't go as fast or whatever their parents gave them, and now they're getting brand new cars that go faster. I mean, I understand that argument.
And I'm
but
also not dumb enough to believe, I understand. Before NIL, there were 5-star guys around campus driving souped-up cars. Of course. So this isn't new.
I've talked about meeting Albert Haynesworth at Tennessee, and he had a brand-new Ford Expedition when he was a freshman from South Carolina that he was driving around and showing everyone in the dorms that was walking by his brand-new. This happened for years. There's no good solution to this other than don't do dumb bleep. You get better driver's ed classes, better parenting at home. It's unsafe to drive over 100 miles per hour. The same thing our parents would tell us growing up. I mean, most cars go fast.
I know, and specifically
Some go a lot faster,
I drove fast
quicker.
once, and I was terrified after I did it. But and specifically in Georgia, they are trying to crack down and penalize a hefty penalty moving forward on racing like this. So it's becoming a storyline worth keeping up with and spreading the message of whatever they're doing on a weekend night at 2:00 in the morning when the light turns green. This is again in the case of Mitchell down in Florida, the 5-star corner for Saban. I mean, that's where you see the blue lights and you hit it harder. It's a little bit different there, and he's paying the price for it.
And there's just no solution other than make better choices.
Yeah.
Because these cars are going to be now. Do you put a governor on them? I mean, this isn't a golf cart. We're not on a golf course, and you can go. Well, now you can only go 75 with this NIL car that we provided for you from Jonathan Hutton Buick Chevrolet. Down the road from Tuscaloosa. There's just no way around it other than kids who are making dumb decisions are getting really nice things at a young age, and they don't know how to handle it.